Hello, everyone, and welcome to this live presentation titled OPC and Python, where we simplify data access in Python. My name is Randy, and I am the presenter today. We're going to speak about programming OPC applications, when you might do this, the available toolkits, the pros and the cons, the good and the bad. We will very specifically talk about a REST API toolkit. Then we'll talk about the server and client requirements. And finally, I will actually show you an example using Python, where we will very specifically read data. So we're going to read an item, then we'll read multiple items, then we'll write items as well. So we'll show you an example where you're reading and you're writing data. You will see what's necessary and how to generate the code. Pretty cool stuff. At the very end, I'll show you how to get this webinar recording. Of course, we're going to send you an email, as I said a little bit earlier. I'll also send you a link for quick setup videos so you can do this on your own, as well as an invitation to the next webinar. So the problem we're trying to solve, we have some PLCs. So we've got some data coming from industrial systems, PLC, DCS, whatever controller you have. This data, it needs to go to a PC. So, of course, we use OPC servers to get that data into OPC Expert in this example. And we're going to take that data and create an application using Python. Now, of course, it's showing the cloud, but really what that means is you can put anything in here. Yes, it could go to the cloud, to the internet, of course, but the whole point is this is an application you're going to write, and the interface to it will be REST API, and that's exactly what I will show. The steps, number one, we will connect, then we will collect the data, and finally, we will develop this application here. And again, I will show you exactly how that's done. Let me show you beforehand what we're actually talking about and the architecture. So why would you program OPC applications? Well, there are lots and lots of applications for OPC that are available today. So whether they're to capture data or to display data or to archive and store data or to visualize, analyze, and so on. Lots and lots of applications are available off the shelf today. And if those work for you, fantastic. Those are the ones you should be using. But there's still a lot of space for custom or bespoke applications that you have to write yourself. So it's either you writing it or you have to hire a programmer to do this for you. What do these programmers use? Well, number one, they could develop their own toolkit to do this. So they would connect their applications to OPC servers, for example, and they would develop their own toolkits. That's possible for them. They can also use existing free toolkits that you can just download, go to GitHub, go download whatever toolkits. Or you can use the OPC Foundation toolkit if that's what you want. Or use commercial toolkits that are using the OPC Foundation toolkit. And all of these have something in common. I'll show you what that is. So the pros and the cons. Number one, the pros is they're really very powerful. They're highly configurable, and developers control every aspect. So they really give you fine control of exactly what you want. Those are the pros. Now, the cons for all of these is, number one, you have to be a programmer. And very often you've got to be a fairly serious programmer. And the development is very, very time consuming. Why? Because, as I said earlier, it's highly configurable and you control every aspect, which means you have to control every aspect. So that's why the development is so time consuming. And very importantly, the developers must handle OPC server connection states. Are you connected or are you not? Are you subscribed or are you not? What are the errors and the exceptions? Very high level. It seems very easy. But I can't read data until I connect to my OPC server. And I have to monitor my connection. Am I connected? Am I losing my connection? Do I have disruptions? This is exactly why applications have problems when they're in runtime mode, because somebody might be doing a write or read when there's no longer a connection. So they're stateful. You have to understand the state of the OPC server. You, of course, also have these errors and exceptions. You have to take care of these. Now, if you're using one of these toolkits, again, they provide you with very, very fine control, and you can control every aspect. Again, the problem is that it ends up being very time consuming. So there's a REST API toolkit, and I'll show you what that is. So REST, representational state transfer. And the REST API it's just an API that conforms to REST design. It's secure. You can use HTTPS. Of course, you can use HTTP as well if that's what you want. And it's used in many, many industries. It's used in many industries all around the world. Name an industry, they're probably using REST API in it. Why? Because it's completely independent of your platform. So independent of your hardware, independent mostly of the software. You can have lots of development tools for it. You can use this with many languages, pretty much any language, whether it's C, C++, you're using Python, maybe you're using JavaScript, whatever it is, whatever language you're using, you'll be able to connect to REST API. And of course, this is so widespread, you can do this on every operating system. So they all have some connection to a REST API, some kind of a web connection using HTTP or HTTPS. And again, this is meant for a stateless operation, which means your application doesn't have to care whether you're actually connected to the OPC server, whether you're subscribed or you're not, whether you're connected or you're not. Makes the development much, much simpler. All the errors are handled in the API, and you just get them as regular data. And I'll show you an example of that. So this is very, very easy to implement and deploy. Quite easy. So very easy for scripts, as an example. So on the server side, so remember, there's a server side and there's a client side. On the server side, you can use Windows XP to Windows 11 or Windows 2003, all the way to Windows 2025 if you're using Windows Server. Now, on the server side, that portion needs to be Windows. So there's support for OPC UA and for OPC Classic. And of course, as soon as you see OPC Classic, really what that means is Windows. Runs as a Windows service, which means that it's always running. It starts with Windows and it's done automatically. Nobody actually needs to log on. So soon as your computer starts, this application starts because it is a service. Again, I'll show you examples of that in a little bit. And nobody needs to log on. So it just provides you data as soon as the computer turns on. And it manages all OPC connections, the encryption, the access control list. So that's done from here down. And that's done directly via OPC security, Windows security, whatever form of security is being used. It's completely invisible to your application here. You set up this connection, whether it's local or whether it's remote. And then this one over here connects to the REST API service right over here. So these are the requirements on the server side. And again, using only one port. Now, whether you choose HTTP or HTTPS, you're only using one. You can use both, of course, but you're only using one port. So if you're using HTTP, you could use port 80, for example. HTTPS, you could use 443. But you can also set these ports to whatever it is you want. So if you're using a different port, then you can do that as well. It's completely configurable. Now, on the client side will run on any platform. So what that means, it can run on a laptop, on a desktop, on a server PC, but also on a tablet. It can run on a phone if that's what you want. It can run with any language. So in this case, we're showing Python, but of course you can do this with JavaScript. You can do this with C Sharp, C++, Basic, whatever it is you want, and on any operating system. So it's completely agnostic of whatever operating system you use. Remember the connection from here, and this can be on any operating system, any platform, written in any language, connects over here via HTTP or HTTPS. This one here can be local or remote to this one over here, to the server side. So the client side can be local on the same PC as the server, or it can be remote. So for example, you can be on a phone, and of course you can be remote. You can be in the factory, or you can be on the internet too. So you can have a local or a remote connection. Quite easy to develop, and that's actually what I'll show you here. And the example I'm going to use is Python to get this communicating, and very, very few lines of code. I'll show you the lines of code, and there are built-in Python examples here. So we got lots of examples specifically built for Python, and it's using only one port, again, using HTTP or HTTPS. Just like we talked about the server side, you can configure this. What's kind of cool is on the client side over here, you don't need to open any incoming ports. All your ports are outgoing. And that's why there's no special configuration on a phone. It works just like a browser would. You never configure your browser to open any ports. It's just you go out to the server has an incoming port, and over here you're just using outgoing ports, which means you are the one coming out, not nobody has to come in. So given that, I'll show you the architecture for OPC Expert. So what I'm going to show you here is what's inside OPC Expert. So that's what's inside here. So you can see this is a black box over here, but let's shine some light in it, make it a white box, and take a look at what's inside OPC Expert. What are the modules that are available inside OPC Expert? Well, we start out with an OPC DA client, OPC Classic, and OPC UA, and that's how we ingest. That's how we bring that data right into OPC Expert. That goes into OPC Expert's intelligent engine. From there, it goes out with REST API. So very basic example in here is you've got OPC Classic in, OPC UA in, REST API out. So that is already built into OPC Expert. Now, here we also have, you can take the data out with OPC DA or OPC UA. So if you have a DA client, you can connect to here. Remember, all of this is inside OPC Expert. You can go with OPC UA client and connect right to the OPC UA server. So that, again, is built in. And you can also see how OPC Expert converts data natively from OPC UA to OPC DA, OPC DA to OPC UA, UA to REST API, and so on. There's also built-in PubSub with MQTT. So what that means is there's an MQTT broker, a publisher, and a subscriber. So if you've got MQTT data sources, you can either grab data from them, or they can send data to OPC Experts. They can send it to OPC Experts broker. For example, if you have your own publisher, or if you have a broker, you can use a subscriber or a publisher to send that data with OPC Expert. And again, once it's in the broker, all that data is available in OPC Expert's intelligent engine. You can also take this data and start to archive data. So you can put it in a database like SQL, like you can put it in CSVs or send it out to the internet, to Azure, or to Amazon or anywhere else. A whole bunch of different types of SQL are supported by OPC Expert. So there are quite a few options here to archive, which means that all of these guys over here also have access to historical data. Now, that's not it, because there's also OPC, an OPC history client. So, for example, if you're using OPC Classic, that would be OPC Historical Data Access, HDA. And there's also OPC UA, HA. There's also OPC Alarms client, which means that there's complete support for OPC Classic, alarms and events, and OPC UA, alarms and conditions. And if you want to send this stuff over to Excel, you can use the RTD, real-time data server, that's built in, which means that Excel can actually get data that's in here. Excel can get access to any of the data within OPC Expert, and you can actually also use Excel to read and write data. You can read data from an OPC server and also write data to an OPC server. So once again, all of this stuff here, all these modules are available within OPC Expert. In this specific webinar, we're going to focus on these modules right here, OPC UA client, OPC DA client, and the REST API server. So that's what we're going to focus on. But of course, all of these modules are actually available. So these three are what we're going to focus on. Now, when you take these, now we'll zoom out again. So they all exist in here as separate modules. So here we have the PC, and the PC can connect to remote controllers, to remote data sources. Maybe you have embedded OPC servers there. So for example, that would likely be OPC UA, or maybe you've got a local driver. Maybe it's OPC Classic, or maybe it's OPC UA. So you might get real-time data or historical data, whatever. But you're getting that data either local or remote, or it's going to other PCs and so on. But once it's in here, you can send that data to another PC. For example, if you've got some custom bespoke OPC unified architecture client app, or any kind of an application that you've got, you can send it to a PC, for example. Or you can send it to a web app, as you see here. Or you can send it to somewhere mobile, for example, a phone or a tablet. Or what we're going to do here is focus on Python. So of course, these can be on any operating system. I'm showing Linux here, but it can really be on any operating system you want. And all of this is coming in with REST API. So let's have a look at the very specific example that we're talking about here. So again, we've got a couple of controllers. The data is going to go to OPC Expert via OPC servers, as we see here. Then we'll take that data and send it out to Python. The steps we're going to take are these. So number one, we're going to connect to these OPC data sources. So first we connect, then we collect the data, and then we're going to develop the application, and I'll show you how to write these. It's pretty cool. Now, for Python, very specifically, we're going to use the idle environment, but you can use any environment you want. For example, if you want to use VS Code, knock yourself out. Nice and easy to do. So let's take a look at what's going on here. So I've got this. We will have a computer here. Let me put that computer up. Here we go. So there is the computer. I'll make this a little bit bigger. So we got the computer here. And this is where we will have OPC Expert. So let's have a look. So here's our computer. Just before I begin, I want to show you what's inside OPC Expert. And when you get OPC Expert, when you download it, you just get one executable. So as you can see, there's one executable. When you run it, I double clicked it. When you run it, it extracts all the files it wants, that it needs. There is no installation as such. You can see there's OPC Expert running, and all the modules that it has all say OPC Expert. So it's very, very easy to find. Okay, so here it's setting everything up, and you can see it's extracting everything it needs. I'm going to close this, and there is OPC Expert running, and it is ready to go. Just so you see, OPC Expert.exe, that's the GUI we're looking at right here. And OPC Expert System Tray, that's this one down here that you can see. That's a system tray, just there to help you out. It's not actually needed for operations, just when you're configuring, might help you out. Okay, so let's take a look inside. we'll take a look. And what we see is we've got DA servers and UA servers. Just for the setup, I'm going to connect to this Iconics OPC server, and I will subscribe to 3 items right here. Now, just to get set up, and this will be good because you can see what's going on here, I'm just going to get the automated setup, and I'll do that by just doing a trend. So when you create a trend, what you can see here is OPC Expert sets up an OPC Expert UA server, and then it also sets up OPC Expert REST API. So we can see this REST API server already running, and what you can see is it's running as the system account, which means it's already set up as a Windows service. So is this one right here. And you can see the trend starting up. And if this trend works, then we know that everything is set up properly. So just like that, I set up, I installed, and here we are, we're even testing. So we've got this OPC Expert UA server and this REST API server. If I go to services, by the way, there we take a look at services, and what we see is OPC Expert UA server. It's a service, and so is this. And you know they're services anyway because they're running as the system account. Okay, so this is working. Isn't that nice? Let's close this. And by the way, we will have a webinar on this, on very specifically on this REST API server next month. So on the 12th of February, and we'll go into this a little bit deeper, but very specifically with JavaScript and give some web examples. Okay, let's close this because we're no longer interested. And there we go. So now we are all set up. In this case, I connected to an OPC DA server. So this here is an OPC DA server. It's all on this computer, so won't bother with this. And you can see I connected to the Iconics OPC server. I'll show you the item ID. Let's not worry about the names. You can see a value, a timestamp, and so on. Okay, I will also connect to a Kepware OPC UA server. So here we go, and I will subscribe to some items. There we go. And you can see this is an OPC UA connection. This is OPC DA. What's very interesting here is that your Python applications will not have to care whether your data source is OPC DA or OPC UA. It just doesn't matter to you any longer. Okay, so let's go see some data. So what I will do here is start the environment I'm going to be using is idle. And again, I said that you can use any environment you want. In my case, I'm using idle, nice and easy to use. If you want to use VS Code on Windows or whatever, Visual Studio, whatever it is you want, go ahead, knock yourself out. So I'll start out a new application. So File, New. And here we're going to start a new Python application. Now, go over here, take an item. First, we'll read one item. So I will right-click this, REST API command, generate code snippet to read, and we will do this with Python. You can see there's some other languages, but in this case, we're going to be using Python. So here we go. I got the code. Now, right-click, paste. Expand this. There we go. So now we can see this data in OPC Expert, and we can see our code. Now, this is just comments for those of you that don't know Python well. We got some importing. There is the actual application. This is the key information here. So what we're doing is we're going to this computer. That's my computer right here. It's this computer. And it's going to read. And here is the item I'm specifying. The item is composed of This is the OPC UA URL. Remember, this was OPC UA. There's the URL right there, URI. And then there is the item ID. So pretty simple. So we're reading, we are reading from this computer, this OPC server, and this item. Nice and simple here. Okay, we're going to get a little JSON object here. There it is. Everything comes in JSON. And what we're going to do is print the value, the status code, the quality, and the timestamp. So that's what we're going to print. Now we'll sleep for 1 second and we will run it. So let's go run module. I have to save this. Yes. And I'll save it on my desktop. I'll call it Python script, and we will save it. So there's the Python script. It's going to show up right here. There it is. And we can see it running. So there we go. We can now see this running. So really nice and easy. And you can see the data coming in. Now pay attention to this. Oh, this guy here, the status code, you can see it's bad. I'll talk about that later. Right now, you can see the status code is 0, which means everything is good. In OPC UA, a status code of 0 means you're good. And you can see the values here. They're all different. So these values, they're all different. So we're getting updates. And that's from the flow right here. Okay, so now we were able to read one value. Well, okay, that's nice to be able to read one value. What about reading multiple values? So let me just stop this. There we go. I'll just close this. Okay. So there's our code. But now I don't want to do just one item. I want to do lots of items. So let me take all of these items right here. So we've got a total of 10 items. We right-click, REST API command. I want to generate a code snippet, read. So I can do this in other languages, of course, but Python is what we'll choose, Python. That puts it into the clipboard. I'll select everything and I will paste. So I'll paste. And here you can see really the only thing that changed was this statement right here. So now you can see, okay, it's asking to connect to the REST API server on my computer. You can see it's using port 57080. And the prog ID, or in OPC UA, that would be the URI. So in this case, it's Iconics. You can see the item. But that's not enough, because if we keep on going, you can see there's another item. This is the random item. And here are some UA items. So you can see this one is custom item. That's this item right over here. And it keeps on going to the rest of the items. So if we keep on going, and again, this is code you can generate yourself very, very easily. It's just a right click in any case. So we're going to read. We're reading, as you can see here, we're reading these items. I'll show you a right example right away. And we're reading multiple items. And then it will print out each one. What I will do here, just to make it a little bit nicer so you can read it better, is I'll say print, quote, so new line, just like that. There we go. So nice and easy. So we'll print it and we're going to run it again. And watch this. So we'll run it, save, yes, sure. There it is. Starting out. So you can see the data. There is the data. And you can see these 10 items, and we're getting updates every second. So here we go. Now you can see that this custom always has this, the memory, it's always got this value. And I'll just stop it here. There we go. So you can see that this one is always the same. That's the memory item. It doesn't change. This custom item doesn't change either. It's always string 0, but all these other values are changing. Just like you see over here, these two values are not changing. The rest of the values are changing. And we were actually able to get all of that right here. So no problem at all getting it. If I want to run it again, I'll run the module. There we go. And we are getting the data again. So quite easy to get all of this data. Now, what's quite interesting is let's go ahead and create a problem. I will go to the Kepler server, which is the UA server, just as an example, server underscore runtime, and I will just kill it and process. And now you can see the status code is different until it reconnects. See, the status code is no longer 0. And automatically, the connection will be reestablished. The server restarts. And in just a little bit, we're going to get new data again. There we go. Status code is 0 again. And if you notice, there was no disruption to the operation itself. We still keep getting data. And if you also noticed, none of this DA data was affected at all. In fact, if I go to simulator, there it is, and I will end the task and process, and you can see that even with OPC DA, 192 is the quality. That's good. Quality of 192 is good in DA. And now you can see it changed. So it just changed in here. We're showing the last value until the server restarts. Okay, the server just restarted and we can see status code of 192 again. And as you can see, I didn't do anything in my application. I'm just getting data. And the server reports good data or bad data. Quite easy to do. So what I showed you is an example of reading one item, reading 10 items, and notice that these 10 items were both from DA and UA. Now I'll show you an example of writing. So what I will do is I'll take memory and I will take custom. So these two don't change, so I can easily write to them and you'll see the write. And what I'll do, so I'll take these, REST API command, generate code snippet, but this time I don't want to read, instead I want to write. And I'll do this in Python. Go in here, select everything, and just pay attention to this line right here. You can see before it was read. Now I go paste, and sure enough, what we see is it's going to write. So there it is, and the same, and there is memory, and the next one is custom. So we're reading, we showed an example for reading. Now we're writing. One is a DA server, one is a UA server. You don't really care. And what I'll do once again here is I will add another line just to have a break. There we go. And there is our line, and I will run it. Now, pay attention over here. You can see memory is 3.14, custom is string 1, run module. And you can see it's 0, 1, right? So these guys toggle between 0 and 1. So you can see it keeps writing. And then these guys are just toggling. So you can see that we can read data, we can write data. And again, what's pretty cool here is that we're reading from DA and UA, writing to DA and UA, and you can see the application really doesn't care. I don't have to worry about it in Python. That's the cool stuff. That's what makes it easy. I don't have to worry about states. I don't have to worry about, is my OPC server connected or is it not? Am I subscribed? Is not? Everything is done for me, nice and easy underneath the hood. So I don't have to do a whole lot of programming, which really takes my programming time way down. Now, why is this important? Because this script, I might want to run it inside my application. I might want to write it as a calculation. I can run it in different threads. I can have OPC Expert, for example, create a calculation, and then run these scripts separately, so you can run your regular applications and execute the script, for example, only when some event occurs, or you can have it run all the time. Really, really neat stuff. Okay, so there we see it. Everything is running. Let's go back to the presentation. So what we saw here is the computer. We're able to get data from 2 different OPC servers, and we had the Python application right over here. Okay, so there's my demo. Let me just say a few more words for the people that pay my bills, and then I will get back to the questions you were asking during the webinar itself. But if you have more questions, please take the time now to go ahead and ask. I answered quite a few of them already. Okay, so for automated troubleshooting, go ahead and download OPC Rescue or download OPC Expert. They're both free to download. They will help you diagnose and troubleshoot your OPC connections. You will also be able to do exactly what I showed you here. And if you download today or tomorrow, you can get the very same version that I showed you in this webinar. If you have an older version, then just make sure that you download the latest. Okay, if you, with OPC Expert, as you can see, you can trend, bridge, tunnel, archive, and so on. All of this stuff is available. Today, we showed a little bit of the trending, and we talked about OPC UA and OPC Classic, OPC DA. So we just talked about these 2 today. If you want to learn more about OPC, come to one of our hands-on learning classes and earn your certified OPC professional designation. You can attend one of our hands-on workshops where you learn how to configure DCOM and OPC UA. You learn how to troubleshoot OPC systems, learn how to secure all this stuff so you can apply the security, and learn OPC best practices. You actually get 2 computers. So each one of our attendees gets 2 computers. So you have one for a client, one for a server, and you can see intercomputer communication with OPC Classic and OPC UA and see how the security is affected. It's actually a lot of fun. You troubleshoot it, you get things working, then we break it, then you get it working, you fix it, we break, you fix, we break, and so on. It's actually quite fun. These workshops are typically remote, which means no travel, but they're live remote classes with a live instructor, and they're very, very interactive. In this case, there's no travel. These are public classes, so they're available to a whole bunch of companies. Everybody comes together. It's pretty cool. You learn from other people, get other people's views from other industries, but we can also do this very, very specifically for your company. So if you got a bunch of people, you want to bring them together, we will do private training for your company. We do these private trainings either online or in person, so we can actually travel to you. Either way works. You can check out dates at opcti.com. Last slide here, then I'll get back to your questions. So we will send you an email with some links, and that will come on either Monday or Tuesday. A link to this webinar recording. You'll get a link to download OPC Expert. So we're talking about the latest OPC Expert, so you can get that downloaded and do these examples that I just showed you yourself. You can see OPC to Python examples, and you can actually get those right here. If you want, you can use this QR code, so you can use them. You can get it down here, and you can also download OPC Expert from there as well. You will also get an invitation to the next webinar. So we're talking about OPC to web using REST API. So in this webinar, we talked about the REST API server specifically to Python, but I will give you this time web examples written using JavaScript. You'll see how to get this information onto the web. So OPC to the web, or even MQTT to the web. You want your data published to the web, knock yourself out. That's what this is for. So any questions, send us an email, give us a phone call. You can go visit opcexpert.com.